We live in a world our ancestors would barely recognize. Around the globe, the impact of human ingenuity is now everywhere. We've pushed back the limits of our planet at speeds, depths, and heights that would have left our forebears breathless. Driving all these achievements is humankind's extraordinary gift for invention. Through genius and inspiration, we've created exceptional solutions to complex problems. From the everyday to the spectacular, some good and some not so good. This series celebrates the million ways our great inventions have transformed our world.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Today, as shoppers, we're spoiled for choice. It seems we can buy everything under one roof, enticed by astonishing discounts. One invention opened the door to foods out of season from across the world at prices everyone could afford. This modern consumer revolution was born from a world facing economic catastrophe, quickly rising to become the dominant retail force, helping to drive changes to the food we eat, offering us ever more convenience, but not without costs. But this revolution is far from over. It is evolving to face the needs of a fast-changing world. This is the story of a global phenomenon, the supermarket. Vast supermarkets like this can be found across the globe. Hard to imagine that just 100 years ago, they didn't exist. Their story begins in the United States, in an era markedly different from today. In the early 1900s, ordinary Americans didn't have motor cars. They walked everywhere, or those in cities caught a streetcar. The women would usually do the shopping because most of them didn't have jobs. Back then, shopping was a major part of the daily routine as shoppers walked from store to store.
If you wanted to get your fish, you'd go to the fishmonger, your meat, you'd go to the butcher, dairy to the dairy person, and so on and so forth.
Butchers, bakers, grocers, fishmongers, dry goods stores, each visit adding more time to the daily routine.
You couldn't go and pick up the item that you wanted. You'd have to talk to the shop assistant and explain what you want, and then they'd go and get it for you and bring it all together.
They went through several processes of identifying what it is you wanted, quantifying it, weighing it, packaging it, and then you paying for it, and then off you went. It was slow, it was considered, it was time-consuming from both sides. The person helping you in that store would probably have a queue of people all waiting to be served.
The experience was far from efficient for shops. Every customer needed a shop assistant to collect goods for them. But people accepted it, even found pleasure in it. Shopping was a social occasion where the opportunity to talk with the staff and other customers was considered socializing. Great if you've got time to kill.
Ain't you gone up? Used to be a nickel.
Not so great if you're in a hurry. It's a sharp contrast to today, where time is money. Cooking has now been replaced by a worldwide ready meals market worth more than $200 billion per year, with over a third of Americans eating fast food every day. This rush culture has been enabled by a fundamental shift in how customers are served, with an emphasis on convenience. Remarkably, this change wasn't initially embraced as a good thing. In 1915, one man dared to dream of overturning the centuries-old system of shopping. Visionary New Yorker Vincent Astor. He realized that he could streamline the experience by collecting several shops into one megastore. He hopes the Aster Market will save shoppers from having to trawl the high street.
The idea of having everything under one roof seems obvious to us now, but back then it actually wasn't, because the status quo was that each vendor had their own specific specialty, and that was the way things were done. But to be that first person to actually think, well, hang on a second, I can make things far more sort of efficient and convenient to the consumer if I just buy everything myself and save them time so they can just come to my store instead of going everywhere else.
Astor's business model means he benefits from economies of scale and can cut costs. A winning design, or it should be. But it fails. The shops inside Astor's Market are still operating in the same labor-intensive way, with one salesperson per customer. So people stay loyal to their familiar family shops and resist the change. But Astor's vision has survived, with several high street supermarkets adopting his basic innovation. They're called cooperatives. The UK's Co-op Group and Germany's Edeka Group are thriving by working together to enjoy the economies of scale that Astor once envisaged. These modern cooperatives have incorporated an innovation that Astor overlooked. It was the single missing ingredient that transformed the shopping experience we enjoy in the supermarket of today. It took another entrepreneur to see what Astor had missed. Just a year after the Aster Market opened, Clarence Saunders launches his version of a large-scale shop. But with a radical twist. The Piggly Wiggly store is launched in 1916 in Memphis, Tennessee, featuring Saunders' groundbreaking innovation, self-service.
What if we just make these aisles that people can go down and actually browse the shelves themselves? We just have to sort of put things in a relatively logical place, as long as it's not everything scattered, then actually this gives the consumers the time to spend and choose and consider. If someone goes in with their list and they have to tell someone, they're just going to buy those things. Whereas if you give them the freedom to roam and browse, well, they might buy other stuff that they didn't even think of, and so more money.
By getting the shoppers to do the work, the staff can concentrate on taking their money. Fewer staff dealing with more customers. It delivers what Astor's Market had missed. Some of these savings can be passed on to the customer. But still, the revolution is slow in coming. There is a vital bottleneck to the system that seems impossible to overcome: bulk. Customers are limited to purchasing only the amount of goods they can physically carry. They still need to split their shopping into several trips each week.
You don't need all that. Put those back.
Aw, gee, Mom, he likes it.
In the end, it takes a revolution in an entirely different arena to transform shopping. A crucial invention opened the door to ever-growing consumption, leading to today's annual grocery spend, exceeding $5 trillion worldwide. The invention that allows us to buy as much as we do today had nothing to do with the stores or the merchandise. It was the revolution in personalized transport.
Henry Ford's first car was mostly a handmade job, created one piece at a time. But Ford soon started a production line, assembling cars faster from quantities of all the parts on hand.
In the 20s, Henry Ford's slick mass production of motor cars helps make them affordable to many people. By 1929, nearly 80% of U.S. households owned a car, and one entrepreneur was quick to cash in.
A man called Mr. Cullen came up with the genius idea of including a car park at his superstore. Now, if you could drive there, you had the luxury of having a car.
When King Cullen opens in Queens, New York in 1930, it removes the single biggest barrier to the shopping revolution. With a car, you can shop to your heart's delight and let the car take the strain.
Before the use of the car park, people were limited to how much they could carry. It was as simple as that. And when you're having to rely on public transport or even walking, you didn't want to buy too much.
A new phenomenon has arrived: the weekly shop. King Cullen is the first true supermarket, a shop that incorporates self-service, product departments, discount pricing, marketing, and volume selling. The accepted definition of a modern supermarket.
They had a motto of pilot high, sell it low. And that meant it actually encouraged mass consumerism. By bringing your car and having it there in one place, you could really load it up with items. You could buy more, you had much more choice. And the consumer could get everything they wanted all in one place, and probably even more than they actually thought they wanted.
But the supermarket remained an American phenomenon. Europe was behind the curve and wouldn't see supermarkets emerge for decades. Even in America, the supermarket failed to impress an important type of customer. Many car owners were middle class, and in class-conscious America, supermarkets had an image problem. It's an issue modern supermarkets have learned to cope with. Modern social inequality is reportedly as bad as it was in the 1920s. It's estimated that the richest 1% may own more than 20% of our combined wealth. But today's supermarkets have evolved to cater for differing tastes and expectations. For those on tighter budgets, they offer cut price ranges and discounts, while selling quality and luxury to the discerning rich. But back in the early 1930s, wealthier customers thought supermarkets were beneath them.
Supermarkets were associated with a kind of lower status. They were selling cheaper food in bulk. It's not a sort of pleasant sort of service culture. It's about price, low price, volume, and to some extent, convenience.
One of the things that we know in consumer psychology is this notion of something being reassuringly expensive. And I think it very much has to do with how people identify themselves as well as the products they're consuming. So the status associated with them, the quality associated with them, but very importantly, how they want to feel in society in terms of their own status.
And so you get already this class distinction between who is shopping in a supermarket and who isn't.
And class snobbery was an issue beyond the scope of any supermarket chain. No amount of rebranding could change human nature. In the end, it took a global financial disaster to realign our approach to consumerism. The Great Depression began with the Wall Street stock market crash in 1929, a seismic event that snowballed into a global economic collapse. By 1933, 1 in 4 are out of a job. There are record numbers of people in debt, and more than 5,000 banks have collapsed. Foreclosures soar, with hundreds of thousands of Americans forced into homelessness. Americans no longer have the luxury of price snobbery, and supermarkets are ready to cash in.
A supermarket was able to sort of operate under economies of scale, and bulk buy in these things and therefore offer them for lower prices. So before, something that was not really very interesting to most people now became sort of the only really viable option to go and get their essentials.
Everybody was hit by the Great Depression, and that was a great leveller. And suddenly, shopping in a supermarket where food was inexpensive became much more the norm for many more people across all sorts of classes of society.
newly price-sensitive customers are now flocking to King Cullen to take advantage of the cut prices, with its car parks now appealing to the car-owning shopper. Rivals begin to compete with the King Cullen model, including Safeway and Kroger. The battle to get customers to buy more things in less time never ends. The car makes shopping easier to get home, but the shopping still has to be carried around the shop, to the till, and then to the car.
People were buying more stuff now when they went to these superstores, but they couldn't physically carry it all. You know, it would take multiple trips of bags back out and then back in again, and no one wanted that.
Supermarkets needed a way of bringing the car into the store.
It was about wheels inside the store itself, encouraging people to take more off the shelves.
The problem required an innovative leap that would transform our world forever. It was entrepreneur Sylvan Goldman who dared to imagine a shopping basket on wheels, and so in 1937 created the world's first ever shopping trolley.
Something that, again, seems so obvious to us now was actually a genius idea from the vendor's perspective, because now people, instead of lugging these heavy bags where they're very aware of how much stuff they're buying, they can put it in this lovely little thing that basically takes no effort to move along.
It might be a genius idea, but remarkably, the American public don't immediately embrace Goldman's invention.
How are you today?
I'm a feel lousy.
No, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, something new. Say, these are pretty slick.
You noticed that, eh?
Sure did. Yeah, I bet your customers will go for them, too.
With my customers, maybe yes and maybe no. We'll see.
Go on, you know doggone well they will. Be right back.
You would have thought it would have been an immediate success. But psychologically speaking, we aren't necessarily open to new things. We shy away, better the devil you know, and we don't want to look silly. Now, if you think about it, if you've never seen a shopping trolley, what does it look like? Well, it kind of looks like a pram. So you've got men, don't forget, this is like the 30s, so very patriarchal, hypermasculine societies. They're thinking, I'm not going to walk around looking like I'm pushing a pram. And then for women, they're like, well, I'm happy to push one of these around when it has one of my babies in, but I'm not going to be pushing bread and milk around. That's just ridiculous. So even though there's like this great, invention, it has so much utility in it, it would make everyone's lives easier, there's a real pushback.
This time it doesn't take a financial disaster to change buying habits, because Mr. Goldman knows a thing or two about human psychology and how to turn public opinion around.
So what they do is they actually pay very beautiful, well-dressed actors to come in and push. And there's male actors and there's female actors, and they push as a couple and they push individually. So people start seeing them around, and they see these people that look better than them, they're dressed better than them, they seem to be having this perfect life, and they're holding it. And so eventually this association is set up between the trolley and something to aspire to.
Trolleys take off, and supermarket owners soon discover that customers are filling them faster and faster.
The shopping trolley completely revolutionized the way shoppers shop. Rather than being limited by how much they could carry in a basket or in their hands, they were encouraged by this little basket on wheels to purchase way more.
So the trolleys get bigger and bigger.
Aisles had to grow in size in order to accommodate them, because of course, the bigger the shopping trolley, then the more stuff people could buy. So that was definitely in the shopkeeper's interest.
Self-service megastores with massive car parks and convenient shopping trolleys mean more customers spending more money. But the supermarket's battle for domination is far from over. Supermarkets turn a tidy profit. But despite their success, they're still facing fierce competition from the traditional smaller stores with a loyal customer base. Once again, global catastrophe transforms the supermarket's fortunes. As Europe battled with Nazi Germany and Italy, America finds herself drawn into the war with Japan. All men aged between 18 and 45 are required to register for service, and 49 million of them do so. As the war machine ramps up, the labor force is decimated, with more than 1 in 10 of the U.S. population drafted into military service by 1945. The small stores are hit hard, struggling to maintain their service with fewer staff.
If you have 1 or 2 workers or a husband and wife and working in a shop, and one of them gets conscripted, you've just halved your labour force, and then it makes it very difficult to run that shop.
The self-service model means supermarkets are more able to adapt to the drop in the labour market.
It relies on far fewer staff than if you're relying on people being served, one customer at a time. So you can lose people to conscription and still function.
Thousands of smaller stores are forced to close. And the theory is that supermarkets are now perfectly poised to take their market share. After the war, supermarkets continued to build on their expanded customer base, heading towards domination, shifting ever greater quantities of food.
Yes, the corner grocery has really grown up. Shoppers enter the supermarket on one side, while on the other, a steady stream of products is delivered on a tight schedule every day from American farms and ranches, from distant parts of the world. Comes the great variety of foods Americans demand.
The expansion of the supermarket as the primary way in which most people in many parts of the world are shopping has a massive knock-on effect on how food is produced, and in particular on agriculture. And it relies upon huge scales of production in both farming and also distribution and manufacture.
But supermarkets continue to grow, benefiting from improvements in related industries. To meet demand, the supply chain is modernized.
Beans are cut and threshed, all in one operation.
Intensive farming sees growing and processing of food at record-breaking rates.
On the farm today, wherever you look, you see the handiwork of scientists. Improved crops, more productive soils, more useful, more efficient machinery. Scientists working to improve plant quality through breeding have given potatoes shallow eyes, so they're easier to peel. And they have also improved storage methods and field packing. Great new harvesting systems and distribution methods had to be developed to bring these crops from faraway farms fresh to our tables.
This mass production offered huge savings through economy of scale, and the suppliers were able to ship far and wide thanks to the large investment in infrastructure, the building of national roads, railways, and the development of long-distance lorries. But mass production was creating its own problems. Although the sight of plentiful, cheap foods overflowing on supermarket shelves was massively appealing to consumers, it comes at a cost.
It's important to understand that food is wasted at every step of the journey of the food process. At the farm, because a lot of it is discarded because it doesn't look good enough, isn't of the aesthetic quality or the size that is demanded by the supermarkets and the retailers. Then at the supermarkets, sometimes it's overstocked to make the shelves look full. You can't predict the exact demand for that week, so you have to have enough in stock to not disappoint your customers, because loyalty is very important.
Food wastage is a particular issue for perishable foods like meat and fruit. One simple but ingenious attempt at a solution had been around since the beginning of the supermarket days: the canning of food. Storing foods airtight in preservative liquids meant shops could stockpile them all year round, knowing they wouldn't perish. And for the less wealthy consumers, tins offer cheaper and easier access to nutritious meat, fruit, and vegetables. But for the more discerning customer, canned food can't match fresh foods. Since the 1800s, the traditional method of keeping meat, fish, and vegetables fresh has been to chill it. But although chilling slows down the growth of the microbes that spoil good food, it's merely delaying the inevitable. Retailers are desperate for a way to keep food fresh for months without cooking it or putting it in cans. The idea of freezing food had been around since a fishing trip in the frozen stretches of northern Canada inspired Clarence Birdseye to develop fast freezing in the 1920s. But there was a catch. Although the shops could stock frozen food, very few customers could store it.
So Birdseye's invented this quick freezer technology and is producing all this food. But of course, the irony is most people, certainly in the UK, but also in America, do not have freezers. So how people are shopping with and using frozen food is that they are sort of buying it on the defrost. So you'd buy it from the retailer, from the supermarket frozen, and then you would eat it the same day. That, of course, totally changes once people have domestic freezers.
The advent of home freezing in the 1940s means that for the first time, households can buy perishable foods which they can keep fresh for months, not hours or days. It's a complete revolution.
With the adoption of the freezer, you can't really overstate how much it transformed how people managed their weekly diet, their weekly shopping, their weekly cooking.
Now, here in the large freezer, you can keep frozen foods and ice cream indefinitely. And you get fast freezing of ice cubes. Now, this is a real freezing compartment. The temperature here will actually freeze food.
Once you had a freezer in your own home, well, now you can just buy tons of stuff, and if you didn't need it then, you can throw it in the freezer and it'll keep for months.
There's the frozen food package dispenser alongside. Remove one package, and another is ready for instant use.
And so if you can keep the stuff for longer, that takes away the pressure of having to be selective about what you buy. You can buy more stuff, and buying more stuff leads to more profits, and so they can offer more goods and so on. And so this sort of consumption culture just grew and grew.
An efficient supply chain allowed supermarkets to offer not just cheaper prices and greater choice, but with the aid of frozen food, they were leading the way with supplying convenience too. The timing couldn't have been better. By the late 1940s, America's Great Depression was well and truly over, and supermarkets were thriving. But while the American supermarket was growing, across the Atlantic, Europe was still yet to catch the supermarket bug. It wasn't until the 50s that Britain finally got wind of the idea, as the Tesco and Sainsbury's chains were two of the first to offer self-service stores. But it would take decades before UK supermarkets would become the norm. Even by 1957, it was still such a novelty that when Queen Elizabeth II went to the States, she took a visit to see what the fuss was all about. Throughout the 50s, the shopping revolution spread across Europe. Germany's Albrecht stores had pioneered discounting after the war, and in 1954 opens Germany's first self-service store. The Albrecht company would later rebrand as Aldi, now a major supermarket brand across Europe. Back in America, by 1954, supermarkets accounted for 40% of all grocery spend, and the share was still rising. Still hungry for a higher profit, these trailblazers introduced another innovation: a concept that transformed not just the supermarket, but the kitchen. The inspiration for this latest quantum leap came from real blue sky thinking. For a while, airlines had offered their passengers a magical new experience. With no chefs or kitchen on board, somehow a hot-cooked meal appeared. It isn't long before a high-flying supermarket exec decides to bring the idea down to earth.
The first ready meals, TV dinners, they were inspired by airplane food, which either tells you something about how people's taste now has improved, or it tells you something about how airline food has got worse, because you can't imagine anyone now bringing out a range of food based on airline food. But airline food, of course, or airline travel was glamorous, it was exciting, it was about the future. You know, you do away with normal cooking, the sort of drudgery and labour of preparing your own food, and you are going to be part of a sort of modern world.
Convenience meals have actually had a huge impact on our lifestyles, because rather than using our thinking time on designing a meal and then going and getting the ingredients, actually all of that work is done for us. Now, all you have to figure out is what you want to watch on telly while you're having your dinner.
With this abundance of convenience food, the U.S. supermarkets were finally unrivaled in the retail market. By 1960, they took over 70% of all U.S. grocery spending. Then came dried ready meals that could be made almost instantly by merely adding boiling water.
And then the ready meal evolved into even more exotic things like delights from the Far East, chow mein, and all these exotic food types that people had never even tried before could now, taste all these different culinary delights.
But the convenience gravy train hadn't dried up yet. Could there be a way to serve meals as good as a proper home-cooked meal, but instantaneously?
You still had to turn on the oven, wait for it to heat up, put it in the oven, wait half an hour, take it out, probably burn it, etc. And so it still wasn't quite as convenient as it could be.
The 1970s brings the first affordable microwaves to the home, a machine that uses electromagnetic radiation to speed cook.
Bam! Along comes the microwave oven where you can just throw your ready meal in and 4 minutes later it's ready and it's perfect, wonderful. And so this endless cycle of innovation and then improvement and iterations beyond that led to just an explosion of convenience and efficiency for the consumer.
Supermarkets have all but liberated the public from the drudgery of shopping and cooking.
Consumers that before were having to spend all their time going to all these little tiny shops, day in, day out, and getting enough food for the family, and then all this time cooking and preparing it and so on, now had all this freed up time to actually spend on doing the things that they wanted.
Imagine having to do that the hard way, by hand.
Think about how much time has then been freed up across the whole population.
The popularity of these products is reflected in booming supermarket profits, but the innovations just keep coming. So far, the success of supermarkets has been based on greater choice, convenience, and competitive pricing. But now the battle moves from the supply line to deep inside our heads. How better to lure us in?
When you go to a supermarket and you're wandering around on your own, free as a bird, you are making your own choices. And so suddenly it became imperative to sort of catch the attention, catch the eye of the consumer. This idea of having to try and seduce the shopper. You have to persuade them to buy something without having any personal contact with them, without actually being able to directly speak to them. And so you do that through branding and packaging. You also have to do it by making your shop look attractive and laying it out in a clever way.
Industry videos help train shop managers in the latest strategies.
And believe me, there's no trick or mystery to building good selling displays.
Just stack the bread so the brand name shows best, and shows off the bread to best advantage. And give the specialty loaves the best display space. So I always display them as near eye level as I can, so they're easy to see and easy to reach.
Somewhere between sort of hip height and shoulder height. This is where customers are really focusing their attention when they're shopping, and this is where there's an opportunity to promote products that are really the most important ones for the supermarket to showcase.
The supermarkets employ increasingly sophisticated psychology to get the customer to buy certain products.
What we see with the post-war expansion of supermarkets and consumer society is also a kind of rise in not only market research, but also kind of psychological studies of consumers and the shopper and of retailers and manufacturers trying to understand, how to encourage this now autonomous shopper to encourage them to buy their goods.
I like this one here. Well, actually, I like them both. But I think I prefer this one a little bit.
These women are engaged in an opinion research project.
Customer behavior becomes an increasingly important weapon in the battle to increase sales. Strangely, attitudes to fruit seem to open a startling insight. Research revealed that the precise shade of banana was critical to the numbers that customers bought. Vibrant yellow bananas are less popular than a warmer shade of buttercup, which are perceived as riper and fresher.
We now know that there is a very strong correlation between, how people respond to particular colours in food. So if a banana is not the right colour, if it is too green, conversely, if it is too brown, people don't want to pick it up. It has to be the sort of perfect yellow colour.
Even though perfectly edible, customers have subconscious biases. The insights open new doors in the race for sales.
All sorts of technologies are developed to ensure that the banana arrives at the store at the right colour so that it will allow people to be sort of seduced into buying it. I mean, other products with stories like that, for instance, salmon. Natural salmon which isn't farmed, has a sort of range of colours. It can be a pinkish hue, but often it's not that kind of bright, lurid, pinky orange that we associate with farm-reared shop salmon. That's the result of certain dyes being used, certain pigments being used. And these are all examples of the kind of psychology of shopping, the psychology of retail that supermarkets have sort of adopted.
Understanding customer psychology blossoms into an important new field. As researchers discover that the positioning of produce within a store can also affect sales. As customers, it seems we fall into three distinct categories: locators, explorers, and dreamers. Nathan Watts from retail design agency Fitch explains the subtly different ways we behave when we shop.
So sometimes a shopper will be simply locating. They'll want to go and find a product that they know that they want, and they know exactly which product they want. Often the mind state may be that the customer is thinking more as an explorer. They want to explore the range. They know they maybe want to find a product in a certain category, but they don't know which one. And occasionally, a customer is in a dreaming mind state. For the dreamer, we really need to try and inspire them to select or choose something that they don't even know that they need. So for a dinner party, we can help to try and inspire the customer to actually consider a dessert for that dinner party. And therefore, in the displays, we're really trying to inspire people and get them thinking about things they hadn't thought about.
But of all the shopper types, there is one very broad category that, when it comes to parting with hard cash, presents a real challenge: the male.
So you kind of tend to see sort of gender differences within this. So women are more likely to kind of walk around, spend more time, going up and down the aisles. Men tend to be much more kind of pragmatic. I've got 5 things on my list. I need to find those 5 things.
When seducing the focused shopper, time is the supermarket's enemy. And 40 is the magic number.
We know that buying behavior changes after once you've been in the store for about 40 minutes. So if they can keep you there, you move from being sort of a targeted spender of I need to buy sort of 3 potatoes and 4 oranges to the kind of spender that just browses and kind of buys emotionally.
So the shop designers do what they can to distract the focused male.
The supermarkets will make sure that they arrange the categories in the aisles in a way that the customer kind of needs to move through each aisle to find what they're looking for.
But it's a balance. For every persuadable, focused shopper, there are many who simply don't have the time. And so supermarkets make sure they accommodate both types.
So bakery used to be a category that would sit somewhere towards the back of the store and as a destination within the supermarket. But now, for someone that just wants to maybe pick up a croissant, is that they're positioning some of those products towards the front of the supermarket to really make it convenient for the shopper who just wants to get in and out.
But the most obvious way to get people to spend more time in supermarkets is to make a good first impression.
It's no accident that when you go to a supermarket in any country in the world, you will walk in and the first thing you will see are fresh fruit and vegetables. That is always the first section, and that is because that is the most colourful, the most enticing.
But it's not just color. The supermarket experience across the globe carefully exploits all your senses. The aroma of breads and pastries that are freshly baked in-store make you feel hungry. And a hungry customer is far more likely to overbuy.
Nothing is an accident in a supermarket. It has been planned meticulously with an understanding about kind of shopping psychology.
The whole experience is carefully crafted, not just to present goods at their best, but to make each customer lose track of time.
The physical makeup of supermarkets as well is kind of not dissimilar to the things that you kind of see sort of casinos employing. So, you have, a lack of natural light. So it's kind of, don't really have, if it's raining outside, if it's sunny, you don't really notice. Very artificial lighting to help you lose track of time. No big clocks anywhere. And the music that's played, again, that's very much about kind of making you feel kind of comfortable, lulling you into the sense that, you're in a very pleasant space and this is actually an enjoyable activity. It's recreational. So kind of the point is it needs to move you from having sort of targeted sort of consumer behavior to kind of it being just something to do. I'm shopping, kind of it's a verb, it's a recreation, it's a way to spend my time. And if they can do that, they've got you hooked.
The design is still evolving. New research continually refining our shopping experience. This level of sophistication has helped supermarkets become the unrivaled force in retail. With 83% of Americans regularly using supermarkets for their food purchases. The average American store boasts over 40,000 items, an incredible range. But with the supermarket model of what you want, when you want, shipped worldwide, comes a downside.
Consumers got quite spoiled over the years by having any food available at any time of the year, anywhere in the world. And this means that we have to produce food really quickly, really efficiently, really cheaply, which also means that the production methods become very unnatural. So we're using a lot of pesticides in the fields for farming crops. We're farming animals in really horrible conditions, which are not natural, and you wouldn't want to spend any time in that way as a human being.
Supermarkets have come under pressure and have reacted by providing wider ranges of organic and free-range produce. But the biggest issue is transport. Shipping huge amounts of food across the world and into the heart of the cities is a critical contributor to global warming.
Our urban populations are growing. By 2050, 80% of the population and the globe will live in cities, which means most of the food will be consumed within cities. Even today, 20% of greenhouse gas emissions in London come from the food industry, and we'll have to do something about that.
Perhaps the greatest problem facing supermarkets goes to the core of their existence: convenience. Like many other aspects of our lives, the internet is changing everything. With the likes of Amazon, shoppers no longer need to even leave home.
Now things have moved into this era of delivery, where you don't even need your car. You just select what you need online and it comes to you.
Now that model is brilliant for the consumer, but it's not so good for the supermarket. It doesn't actually stack up for their costs.
If supermarkets are to maintain margins, they need to keep labor costs low. So they're turning to technology to bridge the gap. But technology and food don't mix.
To have the supermarkets bring the food to you isn't that easy. You know, clothes you can just bung in the back of a truck and they'll be all right. You know, maybe a little wrinkled, but they'll turn up fine. Whereas food, it has a very limited time span that it can be sent, and it's physically delicate.
So robots are being developed with the gentlest of touches to match the ability of human hands to select and even deliver the most delicate of foods.
As driverless cars become more ubiquitous, we can expect to see an autonomous vehicle turn up, make a little ping on your doorbell and out you come and you can pick up your food out of it. Who knows, even a little robot might bring it to your doorstep.
As robots replace humans throughout the system, retail will face the biggest shift since the very beginning of the supermarket.
So in a way, over the last century, we as consumers replaced the shop assistants, and now our role in shopping is going to be replaced by the robots doing the shopping for us.
And with automation, soon we may not even have to order what we need.
With the advancements of artificial intelligence and robotics, it means that those technologies will take away the burden of us even thinking about what we need to eat. And the computers and the robots will do it for us.
Automation could be good for the environment. Automated stock management may reduce overstocking and food wastage. And high-tech efficient distribution could cut the high levels of pollution currently generated by millions of customers making individual shopping trips.
74 pence.
And the very food the supermarkets sell may radically shift.
Meat production is one of the most polluting industries on the planet, and our growing demand for meat means that we are really harming Earth. We're also looking at a future of alternative proteins, which come from either plants or potentially insects. Already a third of the world's population is eating insects. And insects are incredibly efficient as a protein source. It doesn't have to be a whole locust that you eat as a snack. It might be a flour that you're gonna add into bread or other cooked meals, which will give you the necessary protein for that day.
These products are now beginning to appear on shelves across the Western world.
And beyond that, who knows what technology might bring us? Maybe we can have molecular 3D printers that can synthesize perfectly designed food that suits our genetic profile, that is optimized in health and minimizes waste and is just perfect from start to finish. I hope that that is viable in some way, and that's what we head towards.
One thing is sure, supermarkets will not give up their market dominance lightly, evolving just as they have in the past to meet the needs of the times, selecting, growing, preparing, and delivered to our personal specification.